So you've submitted the online form, you've done it, congratulations, and then an email lands telling you that you're through to stage 2, which is the interactive assessment. So I'm sure you'll be very excited getting that news, but there will also be a little bit of nerves that comes with it. That's completely natural. There's a lot of anticipation. You're maybe not sure exactly what you're going into. That's why I'm here to help. This was the stage where I really started researching the BBC and figuring out what I wanted to get out of this apprenticeship, maybe what they wanted to get out of me during the apprenticeship, and looking into their core values. This bit can be a little bit daunting to prepare for, so I'm going to guide you through the entire process and what you need to be researching to make sure you're successful. So let me just tell you what this part entails. For me, this was one of the harder parts to research for. There wasn't a lot of information out there. So let's get into it. So this section is a strength-based assessment, not a test per se. I believe it's all run through a platform called Capfinity. Now that's something that could be subject to change over the years, but the core principles will stay the same throughout. So this section is made up of 2 types of questions. You'll have the personality side questions and then the situational judgment scenarios. For me, this section took about 20 odd minutes to do. You could probably get it done a bit quicker, but worth taking your time here. You will be given a few practice questions beforehand, so make sure to utilize them to understand what you're going into at this stage. So the BBC has confirmed that in this section, you'll receive strength-based questions, situational judgment exercises, or coding tasks, and that will entirely depend on the role you're going in for. For me, production apprenticeship, no such coding task is required, so that wasn't relevant. But depending for the role that you're going in for, you could end up with a technical based test here, so keep that in mind. Initially, once reading a couple of the practice questions, I found this quite calming, understanding that, okay, these aren't going to be very difficult questions. They're not something that you're not going to know the answer to. It is just them gauging your response to a scenario, typically. I don't believe there's a time limit or anything on this one, so you've got all the time in the world to think out your answers and to plan accordingly. So make sure you get yourself set up somewhere nice and comfortable. You have an unlimited time, I believe, on this one, so no rush at all. Get yourself comfortable, nice cup of tea, a cup of coffee, something like that, and you'll be able to pass this with flying colours, I have no doubt. Quite honestly, I thought this section would maybe take a bit longer than it did. Like I said, about 20 minutes for me to complete the entire process, and in general I was expecting something maybe about 30 minutes to an hour long, so not too bad at all. And I really do feel like the practice questions just set this up perfectly for you. You're not going to be surprised when you go into that first question and you feel like you're panicked or anything like that. That won't exist. As long as you've read those practice questions and you've sort of thought out an answer for them, you should be golden. Here's the thing most people miss, and it genuinely changes the way that you approach this test. Competency-based test will ask you what you've done. So that will be structured around things like, tell me about a time you've worked in a team, about a difficult task that you've overcome, something along those lines. For those types of scenarios, you'll be practicing your STAR responses, pick your best examples from your previous employment or personal life, and then it's up to you to perform, to deliver that information. Whereas a strength-based test is more about who you are, and that's what you'll be answering in this section. These will be questions around what energizes you, where does your passion come from, what is your instinctive reaction when a situation such as X lands on your lap. The BBC here aren't really looking for what your greatest achievements are, it's more about how you respond to a situation and whether you'll fit in the culture at the BBC. They're trying to figure out how your brain naturally works and whether you'll be a good fit at the BBC. And for me, that is the key point here. Do not focus on your past experience and what you've previously done. I would focus more on your just natural reaction, your passion for the role, things along those lines. Using some of the BBC's own language, they are quoted to say, "We're not focused on your qualifications, we look for potential." Quotes such as, "We're looking for individuality and for people to be their real authentic selves. We want to see their personality." I believe the assessment is kind of structured around this. You might even get multiple questions focused around the same core topic, and that is to see whether you are being consistent and this is a true reflection of yourself rather than just rehearsing a response that you've maybe practiced beforehand. Essentially, they're looking to see the same traits, so might be looking at your passion or your work ethic or your ability to work in a team, something along those lines, but they might approach it from a few different angles to really gauge whether you are being truthful, whether this is a true reflection of yourself. So if it's not about your experience, what are you supposed to be focusing on? 5 traits that I really think the BBC are looking to hone in on at this stage. Creativity. Things like generating ideas, approaching things with an organic point of view. Curiosity is a big one, wanting to learn, having that curiosity and looking to really understand their systems and processes. Collaboration is a huge one, looking to work within a team as well as contributing to that team and collaborating with the people around you. Inclusion is a big one, valuing everyone's perspective and making sure that everyone gets heard. And then ownership. taking responsibility for your actions and your work, and following through. If you say you're going to meet a deadline, making sure that you are meeting deadlines. So these are all traits that I feel if you can convey in your answers here will go a long way towards getting you progressed to the next step. And don't be afraid to ask your family and friends for a little bit of help here. You could ask them, okay, these are the 5 traits that I need to be hitting in these questions. Can you think of ways that these traits apply to me? And at this stage, I'd really recommend getting your friends and family involved. It can be a lot harder to self-evaluate than it is for someone else to give you that information. So if you go to them and say, look, these are the 5 traits that I've been told I need to hit on in these answers. Can you see any aspect of my life that I exemplify these traits? You might be surprised at the things they come up with. So referring to these situational judgment questions, let's go into detail on this. The structure of these might change, but in general, it's going to be, they'll give you a scenario that is realistically possible to happen in a production environment, and you might have 5 answers that you need to rank from 1 being the most likely response that you would take to 5 the least likely. And again, at this point, it's really important to be honest and to not go for what you think the perfect producer or production apprentice is going to answer with. Example questions might be something along the lines of, you're on a shoot, something goes a little bit wrong, how are you going to handle that? Or maybe there's a disagreement within your team. How do you handle that? Do you go straight to the person and react? Do you go to your manager? These are going to be the kind of questions you'll get here. And again, there is no correct answer here. You're sort of just giving your natural reaction. And if you are the kind of person that really does think they will thrive in this role, it'll come across here. And I don't believe at this section there really is a right answer at all. It's not about one question specifically and whether you'll get the best answer for that question. It'll be across a range of the 4 or 5 questions you might get, and they will judge you based on that entire range, not on each question individually. Don't worry if one particular question does trip you up a little bit. Realistically, they're looking at the range of questions you'll be given and your responses to all of them, and there'll be a sort of score behind the scenes that will calculate your response. So if you're doing your research before starting this stage, I'm sure you've come across the BBC values plenty of times. It's worth spending a little bit of time to really dig into what these values are. I'll have them up on screen for you, but really sort of try and understand what each value embodies, maybe how it relates to you and your personality, maybe some of your past experiences, and how you can then convey that in your answers. This is definitely something that I focused on heavily in a lot of my answers for this section, as well as some of the next ones. Don't feel like you need to memorize them word for word exactly, but you should know what they are and what each relates to. And then in any scenario that you feel you can actually implement that into your answer in a natural and real way, that's the time to use it. But even if you're not referencing them directly, these will be the kind of values that will get picked up by your assessor at this stage. If you progress, the next stage then would be the video interview via higher view. This is where it shifts from the sort of strength-based situational questions to more specific, why the BBC, why this role, why this particular scheme, that sort of thing. I'll cover the higher view stage in the next video, but this is where it gets really important. That higher view stage could have questions that are tailored specifically to how you've answered stuff in this step. So it's really important to be consistent. That's why I keep harping on about it. Be you, be natural, and if you're the right fit, you'll get it. If it feels like you're just sort of regurgitating the answer that they want to hear and that's a bit fake, that might come across poorly and could be a detriment to you. And I think the reason the BBC uses this sort of application process rather than a show us your experience, prove to us that you've done this before, is because they're trying to find people who actually belong at the BBC rather than someone who can research a question really well and give a performative answer in front of camera or in front of an interview one time. They want people who are going to be able to contribute to the BBC over the long term. That's actually a good thing. If you think you are the right person for this production apprenticeship and you're not just doing it for a job, then that will come across in this section. It proves that you are passionate and you are ready for this opportunity. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.